All right. Hello there, everyone. We should be live and streaming and all those other things. But welcome to the second Umbara mapping stream. So we're going to take a quick look overhead. We're going to turn that off. This is what our map is currently looking like. We put most of our attention in this. I'm going to be generous to myself and call it a quarter of the map, combined with the other stuff we've done off in the base. But we've got the general layout. I think I want to extend this hill up a bit more, but we've mostly kind of roughed out the territory we're going to do, and I think I do want to play a little bit with the textures, because one of the things that I really want to make sure that we have is on a map that is darker like this, or at least that we're faking darkness on, is I want to make sure that we have an easy enough time telling where you can walk and where you can't walk. So coming through here, it needs to be very clear that you can't go up here, you can't go up here, but you can go in here. Or at least infantry can go in here. So this is mostly used in those areas. I'm just going to darken that a little bit. And with this, I'm actually going to lighten it a little bit. So we're going to try to have a little bit more contrast. And this I can probably clamp down on that a little bit more. It won't necessarily be that, like, every place you see that distinction you can't go, but it should help make it a bit more obvious the places that you can and can't go. So what I'm actually going to do for this is that is temp ground Umbara and 512 temp ground OB. So W, I think that's 09. So that's 09 Umbara. And that's going to be W temp ground. Delta, the MC90 is like super OP right now, if anything. Its main role is tanking, but shit. There's W512 temp ground 01. Yeah. There we go. Then we can have a lighter version in here. Without it being quite as bad. Is there any way to implement persistent damage in temp art war? Not as such. We have some ideas on stuff we might be able to do to kind of simulate it in some ways, but you can't have it be like actually tracking the damage. There we go. Still have a bit of mixture, but we can actually use a couple textures here. I am going to change the angle a bit so it helps differentiate it. No, Umbara vehicles are not coded in yet. We have not done art for them. They'll be a thing in the future, but not quite yet. I think we were actually working on this this area before we ended last time. So there we go. Well, you have to think not just about the number of hard points, but look at the actual stats for the weapons. Because, like, one hard point does not equal one hard point all the time. Yeah, I need a new mouse. I need a new, less clicky mouse. Or to break this one open and get some alterations in there. So, like, this should be a bit clearer for people to see where they're able to go or not. And I wanted to extend this one up a little bit, I think it was. Yeah, Umbarans will be CIS or CIS affiliated based on the current system of how indigenous stuff works. I'm going to try to do actually a bit of a strange mountain here. So you usually want to make sure that any paths you have enough points where stuff can come back together, that you're giving people options rather than just having like a big single separate path. Because we've got a few places here where you can actually bring stuff back together, and that's kind of what you want to go for. Those greens are too obvious. Alright, and let's scale this back down because we're going to do a little bit of darker forested areas. Well, forested. This is Umbara forested. You're going to put some kind of trenches in like the ones from the show? No. In Empire at War, that's usually a bad idea. Because in Empire at War, stuff doesn't know how to adjust for height. So if you have stuff that is shooting, and there's any kind of height variation, they'll usually just shoot into the ground, and it's very annoying. So trenches and EAW wouldn't really mix very well. What if you made some Umbaran vehicles? I mean, again, that's the plan eventually. It's just they haven't been a high priority when we were still working on the core of the assets for the CIS and Republic. You'll start to see more unique stuff like the Umbaran stuff, and there's a few other similar or similarly positioned groups that you'll start to see, but it's just we've been working on like the core of the CIS and the Republic, so those guys tended to not be as big of a focus. It's not a diplomacy system, Delta. It's some factions in certain circumstances can be allied or not. And the specifics of how we do that will depend on how certain things end up working. It's not going to be like oh, I have this good a relationship with that faction, so then we're going to be neutral or allied. It's just like the Empire, the Hand, and the Chiss would be allied, and then the New Republic would have the vassal system, which allows them to be allied with certain factions, but not everyone. You can't just have like entirely flexible diplomacy in a game like Empire at War. It would be, at best case scenario, it would just destroy the entire game flow, because you'd surround yourself with allies and you'd be under no threat from anyone because of how the node-based gameplay works. Imagine if a system defected to a faction. That can happen. That's what the revolt and influence stuff does. Alright, let's try to get stuff slightly roughed out around these edges. Would there be a way to implement multi-objective? I mean, like, at the end of the day, if you kill everything, you've killed everything. So there'd be a possibility of like specific objective missions, like campaign missions, where forces would spawn in different areas until you've actually done certain objectives that get laid out. But in Galactic Conquest, it basically does come down to either kill everything or have a way to get around having to kill everything, like the victory points do. No, again, Delta. It's not just a relationship between whomever. It's specific factions that will have specific relationships with each other. Like the corporate sectors fitting into that would just be the corporate sector being a potential New Republic vassal. It wouldn't be like you can just hire whatever faction you want to do stuff or join with whatever factions you want. That wouldn't really work in Empire at War. Ender's Army, that is basically just Empire at War's pathfinding and targeting. There's not really much we can do about that. That's why it has such a large firing arc as it is, but that's about as large as we can make the firing arc. When a planet starts an uprising, will there be a battle you can participate in to prevent the planet from going over to the enemy? Unless it's part of a specific story event, the planet will just flip. You have 3 weeks of, even if you're at the lowest influence level possible, if you're at 1 influence, you have at least 3 weeks to do something to reduce the influence. So, like, making it be a battle every time it wouldn't really work out very well. Alright, I think I'm okay with the layout overall now. One thing that I'm just kind of concerned about is how is this area going to fit into the map? Because we have these areas. I might even move the entry to this over here more. Or another entry over there. Like, there's the obvious assault path being here, but that'll have to be a bit more fortified. So we'll probably have more turbo lasers on this section, fewer on this section, and this is for the outbase. You have the other airfield. Let's see. Like, I like that this, you have a good infantry option, but you can still bring the vehicles in. Like, this is primarily going to have a lot of infantry. I do want to make it a little bit less standardized. Well, Smoking Piggy, there's no Maelstrom design, so not really much of a basis to say it looks cool on. I kind of want to do this almost like the Endor or the Kashyyyk map. Where this is going to be a less obvious path in, but I still want it to be a path in. Don't worry, there'll be more trees. Most of the map will end up looking like these areas, but right now I'm mostly focusing on getting the layout before going in too much with the props, because I want to make sure we have the layout we want. So I don't want it to feel too artificially constructed. Need to make sure there's enough different paths without them always being cut off from each other. Because here you can go a few different places and you can go a few different directions, but you can also adjust when you want. We haven't started on Umbaran units. They will come later. They'd be a likely priority for the next versions of Fall of the Republic, but not 1.0. Alright, I'm gonna close that down a little bit. Hard-coded basically just means it's not stuff that's exposed in files that we can edit and redistribute. It would be part of the actual game engine's code. It's not necessarily a specific type of coding, it's just where it's coded in. All right, I think that's good. Well, it's not that, like, there are people in the world who would know how to break open the EXE and then you could change stuff. But the problem isn't knowing how to do it. It's that even if you did do it, you can't then recompile and distribute that. Like, it's not a technical skills issue. it's a legal issue. I don't really like how this ends up feeling. Let's move this over here. So like this all feels very artificial. Which, I mean, it was just a rough laying out of it. But I think we're going to have this be like a denser forest area. That's why it's only infantry accessible through that way. Yeah, I think that works. Alright, and this being Empire at War's map editor, I'm going to save in my backup. EW expanded. Data art maps. Umbara backup. Well, there's already some violent stuff here. We have the Vixis, that's what it's called. I did just get a pop up about low storage. My perennial problem on my C drive, which has all the Empire at War modding stuff on it, but is also my SSD for my hard drive. Alright, this is going to be more of the city area. So we're also going to go... Is there a better Skydome for this? Like, I feel like the actual Skydome works pretty well. It's just the bottom part that doesn't. Just not something we can really do as much about. We really need to make more that go down lower, like this one almost. Only, you know, less ugly. Because it hides the edges a lot better. It's kind of what you gotta do. Is make sure the opposite of what's going on here happens. And you do some light rolling hills in the background. So that as it gets farther out, you end up looking less off the map. I personally am looking most forward to Acolyte. I think that's going to be good. Leveling, I think it's like 50. Yeah. Make sure that this is properly in there. Like, the genres sound coolest, and I really like when they do cool stuff with areas that people may not be looking for that kind of thing in. And I think that's a big part of what made Mandalorian as good as it has been, is that there's not really as many built-up expectations. And like there are for some elements of it, but they were able to come in and deliver on something without people being like, oh, well, I need this to look like this. Like Miak and Charlie did our TapCaf episode last week on a lot of that, so I kind of gave more in-depth thoughts there. If you want to listen to a podcast with me on it. I really don't do much plugging of like datapad on loses or loses on datapad, and I really ought to do more of that. Like I'd be kind of interested to know what the actual overlap is in audience and subscriptions even. Because I feel like it's not super high. It's like people who are on the Discord would probably be the biggest overlap because like it all gets announced there. But for people who are just like following the channel, even if you follow it pretty closely, I'm not sure how much of an indication that datapad exists there'd be, and vice versa. Will you do a unit stream ever? Do you mean like making a unit? Like the art process and stuff, Speedster? So you can see. Alright, I think we got the outsides here relatively well handled. We just kind of got to go to the point that the city we want to make is. Like, we were gonna make Revan's Revenge, but there's just so few units. If only there were some source for units. Is there a way to make the map look like it continues on rather than just cutting off? No, you'd kind of have to do skyboxes, but that's kind of what we're doing here, is if you play a bit with the height, you can make it fade into the background. Because if you look, like, you press spacebar and this is kind of the way it'll look in-game. This is what an in-game screen will look like. So the in-game view, you can see the scale of that stuff. In the mod, it tends to be a little bit more zoomed out, so probably closer to this. I'm not sure if it's pulling it from the ground camera file properly right now. But I think what we're going to do is we are going to focus a bit more on this area right now. Airfields. And I'm just going to... What I really want is a way to do those, like the kind of lines around everything in the show, and like we'll have some fences that we can kind of do some of that with, but we can't really. There's nothing we can really do that with independently. I'd have to make some decals of some kind. So I feel like this might be a map that I revisit with that stuff. Let's see, props generic. Great scroll. Probably do best looking in urban. All right. Forgot this was still in the files. I really want to make our own version of this. The tram. Liana buildings, Bob. We got a couple Mando buildings here. It does kind of suck, like, on the one hand, it's really cool when planets have such a unique look, but on the other hand, it makes it so that you're pretty limited in what you can actually do. I think we might be able to use some of these guys for it. Do we have blue? No. Generic whites. We have purple. It's very sad. I don't want to have to go and rig more of it. There is a picture of an Umbara city way off in the distance. You can see it in like there. And that's kind of what I want to try to recreate over there. Which is kind of also what these little spotlights are meant to be modeled after. So I might as well just place that now. Let's get rid of that one. Yeah, once I'm done, I am going to do some playtesting on it. This is my first map in like years, but try to make it as good as I can. And one of the things with modding, especially, like, one of the things that you kind of learn, or we've all had to learn, is that you're very rarely doing something for the last time. And something that I always try to, or one of the hardest things, I think, for a lot of people who join the team, even people who have done like modding in other places before, especially if they're coming from a mod that was like going for shorter or didn't necessarily release while they were on it, is the idea that like it's okay to have to revisit something or to like work on something in an unfinished state. Because like if you get too precious with stuff you've made, you're just going to be upset if it ever has to change. But like almost everything the mod is not on its first iteration. So if I'm coming through later and I'm touching this up more, or I'm adding new props that we make or fleshing it out more, that's the right, like, that's a good thing. I'm not aware of the rebels using Umbara and stuff in anything, or any mention of that. But yeah, like you're almost never gonna get something perfect the first time. You're never gonna get anything perfect, but you're almost never gonna get anything right the first time. And like, you want to get it as good as possible. And like, we're getting to the point where there's some stuff that just like, because of reasonable limits, we'll probably never go back to or revisit. And a lot of that's more on the art, like the model side, but. Like, especially for me right now with mapping, because I haven't done it in so long. Like, if I didn't come back through afterwards and do refinements for the next version before I even think about doing another map, then I'd be shocked. We don't intend to add that Liberty from the comics in anywhere. Because that's one of the things that's weirder. Although they were like converted luxury liners earlier, it's just we're not in a situation where they were converting those luxury liners. But with the texturing, you kind of want to have your main base texture and then have that filtered in with a few other things. And I'm trying to make it so that you're roughly indicating paths with the changing textures, but you're not making anything just like a solid line within a solid line. So you don't want to do, like, let's say we have that there, then we have this like this. It's just like a straight group together, and then maybe inside it we have this like this. You never want to do something that's quite that sectioned off. You generally want to have it so it's just grouped enough and maybe some stuff that's interspersed, but you have like edges that go off and make it look like it's a natural thing. And that's one of the hardest things to do with mapping, is making it not look like I've placed it, but instead making it look like this is how things look here. And it's not my best skill, especially working with like a more limited prop pool, which we are on this. But like even here you can see I've gone too uniform with this rock, where I've just got it on the side of the hill and it ends up looking like it ends up being kind of obvious that it's not part of it. I want to make good use of the ground covers because, like, Umbara is really overgrown. That's one of the things we see with their fields is that there's stuff almost everywhere. So you got to be a bit careful with ground covers because they will lag. But we want to make sure that we've got enough here that it doesn't feel dead and empty anywhere. Because, like, even the fields are pretty piled up with stuff. It's unfortunate that these guys are as green as they are. The billboarding is annoying. Like, I'm almost gonna line all of this with some nice Umbara red plants. There. All right, so I think the next logical step here, if we're happy with this section of the layout, which I think we are, would be to do the props on these two. Would be to set up those two. And I don't think I want them both to be hills. I think I want this one to just be a jungle. And to save myself some time, I'm going to do that. And then... So, like, I'll never be able to do things as randomly as the original prop brush was going to do it. And then we can just throw stuff back around. And I'll make sure that there's not really anything that's clipping where it ought not to be. That we have a good spacing. Well, the thing is that I would like to do that road, but that road requires stuff that we don't have, and that would be difficult to do in EAW. So, like, I'm going to try to do part of it, but I really need some decals. I might be able to do it in white. So I'm going to give it a shot. But that road is basically meant to come down here. Like, once I have this section done and this section done, I'm gonna try to recreate something like that road. There has to be enough here that it's clear you cannot go in this area. Alright, because the stuff we've used here is actually a different green texture. We want that all gone. Now this can go a little bit more inward. We don't want it to just end in the playable area, but we need it to be clear why you're not walking in there. Yeah, I have nothing to do with AOTR. Why does the elevated area look so green? Because it is. It's using that other green texture. But I am going to switch that. I'm going to give it a different... I may as well do it now that I'm working on those areas. Let's give it this one. There we go. Is there going to be a Sarlacc on the... It's Vixis. It's like a Sarlacc. I've done a Sarlacc recolor for it. Technically, it should have its own separate art. But there's a couple of those placed already. I think I placed 2 of them already. I'm going to have this raised, even if I'm not doing it up on like a cliff the way the other ones are, I'm going to have some height variation in here. Just to kind of help break it up a bit. And we're going to want a bit more texture in these areas. So... darken that just a little bit more. Some additive code, and we're gonna put that down just a bit. Just gonna go around the edges. No, they haven't. They haven't gone further with Eli and Thrawn's stories yet. Though it seems like they may do that soon. Alright, I'm not thrilled with how that's coming out, but it's all right. And that'll definitely be an area that we do a bit more on later. But let's see what we can do about that road. So do we have a concrete... W... I'm gonna try to have it be relatively straight, so these lines all kind of match up. Well, thank you, Mad Hatter. So, where's our clone boy? Well, let's bring this guy over here. I think going down this way. Yeah, I think that works. So let's see, how big do we want this? 41. No, let's do 60. Will there be new units for the Havens in 3.0? No, not yet. There will be a bunch in the next release, though, or there should be a bunch in the next release. Well, we wouldn't want to use a model for the road, because then it'd need to be flush with the ground. But I might be able to pull in one of the textures from the Umbara, or like it'd need to be a different thing entirely. Like it'd need to be its own texture, because I don't think the textures for the roads are. Or the texture for the prop, because here, I'll show you what we have. Can I play Father Republic with the GOG version? Unfortunately not. The GOG version lacks patches that the Steam version has of Empire at War, not the mod, so we can't support it. So like we have this, but I'm pretty sure the texture for this is not the individual hexagons. But I'm gonna see. That was almost bad. Don't filter. W. Ooh, this is perfect. This is what we want. I don't want to do hard edge. We do want it darker. Well, it's not perfect, but it's better. Especially if we can line it. But I'm just going to do the rough path of the road we want. Hey, Kalo. Will the flame tank stay with the Empire then? We haven't made any decisions on what the roster is going to end up losing or getting. Maybe we'll just have the road. So it's going to take a lot of messing around with it to make this look good. It's not going to be a simple thing. So we're going to need to do some prop work, along with maybe even some height work and the texture work. There we go. And the specularity is way too high, so we're just gonna drop that. Alright. I feel like this will go better if I start doing some props with it. Now that we have like a rough area there. And I'm just going to do this as a placeholder until we have something a little bit more suitable. Well, first let's do leveling code brush. Terrain level of 10. No, I guess we gotta do terrain level of 60. Yeah. Smooth weight of 1. Radius of 60. We have to be really careful with this because we don't want it to be high enough that it impacts gameplay. But we do want to make sure the road ends up being slightly raised. I think we're going to need to angle the texture a little bit more. We want it to be more or less in line with the road. There we go. I'm going to try to stay... Yeah, well, that didn't work. Like that. We need a harder, steeper... Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to just flatten that. Nope, that is not the type of brush I'm using. I mean, Kale, if there's other worlds you want to make prop sets for, I'm sure Colin would appreciate the help. Bob's done some Christoph's stuff. There'll need to be more of that. Colin did a bunch of Umbara stuff, and he's doing my Guido stuff now. We're going to need a bunch of all that. Alright. Need a Corellian train. Aw, Kalo respects me. Yeah, I did say train. Like a better version of the tram that we got from Legacy of War. I want to fucking throw that thing on Corellia. We need a Corellian train. What angle is the texture at? The texture is at a 29-degree angle. So I want you to also be at a 29-degree angle. That's not the same 29-degree angle, though. That's not good. I guess it's not starting from necessarily the same spot. So we'll do these props, and then we'll have a better line to work off of. I'm going to try to do it every 2 or 3 there. And then we'll use that to gauge our straight line, and I can adjust... Huh? We'll do more sections of road after this, if this works out. But I really just want to get the style down. Like, this isn't exactly what was set up in the show. We need, like, different blue lights, and it needs to look cooler, but that can be replaced later. We're just making the road. There. This side is slightly behind that side. Yeah, the ground in the game is really fucked up. So since they were halfway underground, I need to get it reasonably set up before I'm able to really see how far in or out things need to move. So ideally, this is going to go there. That's going to go there. Alright, so that is what I want to do. So we'll set up this side, and then we'll copy paste again. So we want it to be just about 2 hexagons apart, but they're not an equal amount or an exact amount of hexagons long. So we're kind of going rough on some of it. Then it's going to crash when I'm halfway through this, and I'm going to be very sad. But it gives us a decent point. There we go. In there. So we're going to do these lights, then we're going to do the sides of the road, then we're going to do the texture again over it. And we're going to use the props to mark the edges of the road and cover up the parts of the texture that blend. Because you can technically do this. You can set it to be a hard edge. But that's always going to jut. Like, we can't control the area that juts on because that's working off of the map's geometry. And the map's geometry, especially when we're going on a diagonal, is very 2006. So we don't want to trust that. Autosave. Navy beat. There, it'll be just wide enough for an ATTE. So we want to go about out to there. Maybe a little bit less. Like that. And you guys have got to go up a little bit more. So otherwise, it's just going to have Z fighting with the ground. So it is going to be hovering a little bit. We want it at about 5. We want all of them to be about 5. And we've got to get the height as level as we can. So like if you have stuff that's technically on the ground, then what you're going to have is a lot of flickering on it. Because the game has to decide what to render first. So having just a little bit of space between it and the ground, you end up having it rendering slightly cleaner. Is there a way to make battles happen on hills? Like if one faction... I mean, there are maps with different elevation. This one, because Umbara is... Like, we only really see it as fields that they're running through. That's what I'm sticking with for this. What you don't want to do is have a bunch of variations in height in the playable area, because the Empire War is not very good at that. You get stuff that just shoots into the ground if you have a bunch of, like, just little berms between things. Because the game does, like, the AI doesn't know it's shooting at the ground. It thinks like, oh, there's the target, it's in front of me. Like, let's say I have these guys, this guy here, let's give him a friend. And let's say we have this hill. Let's do this like a really obvious way. Let's say this is like this. If you tell these two guys to shoot at each other, they will try to shoot at each other and they will hit the hill. So, like, obviously, that's why you're usually going to want to avoid having things... Okay, that... Yeah, it's... What?
Yeah. Does it only undo the tab you're on?
Yeah. So if you have, like, even just a little variation in height, and you have a unit... Or, like, you have a hill that's, like, higher up on the infantry than their chest or where they're shooting from, then it's going to fuck everything up. And that's why we've gone through and made sure that almost every map does not have any of those things. It may sound like it's cool to have all these, like, rolling hills and stuff. In-game, it's just a piece, like, it's terrible. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ryan Phillips, for the $10 donation. Just want to wish you and your team a Merry Christmas. It's been a normal year, but at least the cruel AI makes the days I play Thrawn's Revenge and Fall the Republic more interesting. Well, thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you as well. Yep, there will be Yuzon Vong eventually in Thrawn's Revenge. Alright, we need a we need the whatever we're gonna use for the side here. We need something thin. We'll use these guys. What angle are you at? 34.8. So you're going to be also at 30. There. No, I don't want to select you. I don't want to select you. I want to select all of you. There we go. Now we want to do that on, yeah. We want to do that on the other side. Gotta bring them over so it's the same length, same distance. Yeah, we've shown the Coral Skipper, and then Slevert and Inertial have both been working on some other stuff. There's like actually 3 or 4 Vong ships that have models or skins. Models and or skins. Shit, they're slightly off. The angle is slightly off on each of them. I wonder if that's part of the model or part of just the arrangement. I think I'm just gonna have to I think it's on the arrangement on the lights. Like, ideally, I'd have a separate set of light things that look more like the Umbaran ones, and I will do my best to make one of those at some point. But for now, we're going to work with what we have. Like, I'll make a better Umbaran roadside and a better Umbaran, like, light decal. But we don't have those right now. And a lot of the time, you got to just work with what you got. It'd be relatively simple to go and make a blue one of these, but if I'm going to be making a new one, then I may as well just make the new one later. So if this works, you know what? It might even be better to do that now. So I'm not replacing as much. And then if I just update the texture to be this, or to be the Umbaran decals, then at least it'll be a different object. We're still not going to be able to do roads as easily. Let's see, they have a pretty wide... There's 3 different styles there. Alright. So we're going to need you, and we're going to need you. And we're going to need you. So this is TR generic light bar 1. We're going to find TR generic light bar 1 in XML. No, 3.0 isn't released yet. We're not doing an open beta. I'll probably do a dashed line, a straight line, and the fuzzy thing. So I might actually need to do 3 of them. So generic light bar, that's lightbar1.allo. Okay. File, import, File, import, allo, models. Actually, let's see. Oh, light bar. For some reason I was looking for generic light bar. Light bar 1. Oh, that explains a lot. The fact that it's rectangular like that. Or square, rather, not rectangular. The other one. So generic 1 reigns underscore tile. So we want this. Will there be a ship reveal for the Hapen ships in the near future? Depends how you mean the near future. At some point there will be one. We've got a bunch of shit to texture though. So within the next month? No. Within the next many months? Maybe. W generic 1 reigns underscore tile. W underscore. Alright, so this is going to be our straight bar. And it doesn't necessarily matter that I get the color exactly right now, but I'd like to, because I can, once the props are in, I can replace the objects and it won't be a problem. But still, we want to make sure that I'm not coming in multiple times. So it's about the right shade. I would like the middle to be a bit less. No, actually, that makes sense. That does make sense. So like this. Just go straight back here. And with this, we're just going to do image brightness. There. Get a little bit more of the blue showing. Alright, so I'm just going to do textures. .ddsw Umbara Simple. And I get a good look at how this works. I think doing those symbol-y ones is going to be a bit more challenging. Probably not going to be something that I can do outright in this part of the stream. So what I think I'm going to do is export two of the same. Really, I want a few different patterns of it. So we want that, and we want I'm actually going to make this free transform. That. And you are going to go under. You want it a little bit thinner. I want that to be .dds. State modified, Umbara light simple. Do 5 pixels. And then new guide. There we go. And then again, these are just, they're going to be rough, but I can get the objects and I can place them, and then I can edit the textures and models, and it will look, it'll change how they look. Like the objects can be in place, I can redo the actual assets, and I can do that without having to redo the map. So I want to do it in a quick way that lets me see what we're doing, and lets me get the stuff in game without messing up everything, or like without having to spend as much time here right now doing those elements of it. Mods, data, art, textures. And we want this to be complex. There. So now we can just export 3 different things. 2 of them are going to look the same, but it's just placeholders. Thank you, Vandecoop. Alright, so we want to open these guys. Image texture, open, date modified. Open all those. And this is going to be complex. So file, export, Alamo. Models, Umbara light, complex.alo. And then we're going to do Umbara light quad, file, export, Alamo, Umbara light quad.alamo. That's exported. Then we're just going to switch again to Umbara light simple. File, export, allo, with Umbara light simple.alo. Then we're in here. We're going to do that. That's going to be W, Umbara light, complex. So Umbara light, complex. And then this is going to be simple. Simple. This is going to be quad. Quad. Simple. Okay. So we got that guy. We are going to want to copy this. And I'm going to open a new window. Umbara, we got to save and exit. Because we are putting in the new stuff. Mods, maps, art, textures, paste those. Art, models, art, models. So the final quote unquote texture is going to be thinner. But this should be at least mostly what we're looking for actually putting it together. And I might even be able to do some curves with this setup. How do I install the mods I want via Steam? You just have to click the subscribe button on the workshop. And then it downloads, and then I've made a few videos on running mods through it. So there's like a few different ways to set it up, but it's all very easy. Alright, so after all that, you're all going away. It is unfortunate that these have to exist. We need something to stop the roads from overlapping, or the texture from being visible. And I'd like to get a different thing for it, but I think that's definitely beyond the scope of what we're going to be able to do right now. So let's see, did we get our props? Urban... Where's my lights? Alright, quad is middle, and there's slight separation between simple and then complex on the outside is kind of how we had it originally. So like again, these are going to be very thin. So I'm actually going to do this thinner. Edit mode. Scale. I might even leave the complex ones how they are, because there's going to be a bit more detail there, so I'd like to keep it. Simple, quad, file, export, hello, quad. Don't want to save. Borrow expanded, data, art, models, there. Like, no matter what I do, it's going to be thinner. Except for the complex ones. And I may as well do it now, rather than... What the fuck? Oops. Did I not copy? Copy, just to be sure. There we go. Maps. Open it. See you, Virginia. All right. It'd be so much simpler if I just didn't make the assets. If I just let it all happen. Alright, I don't want to make the road any thicker than this. Because it's already taking up a good amount of the screen. There we go, though. This is what we want. I think it's 34.8. Yeah, 34.8. And the way this is set up, there's a bit of space in between them. So I think we're going to go back to our standard of about 2. I'd actually move these up here. I'm going to delete this because we're going to see how much of the road we're going to be able to go back on. That was lazy. That was sloppy and lazy. Let's see the old V19 back with the PA. No. That's unlikely to go back into the mod. Like with Fall of the Republic, we try to keep stuff that is unnecessary from the Clone Wars out of Thrawn's Revenge. Because, like, if you really want to play with Clone Wars stuff, we got a whole mod for that. And it was just contributing to this idea that the Pentastar alignment was a Clone Wars faction. And then, like, the more we had, the more people would ask for more Clone Wars in the PA, which just isn't who they are. I think this texture needs to be a little bit darker too. This is the Empire War map editor. I use Photoshop and Substance Painter for textures, primarily Substance Painter, but for like simple stuff like this I was just using Photoshop. I do most of the modeling that I do in 3ds Max, but all the rigging for Empire War is now done in Blender. You can use old versions of 3ds Max for it, but then you're being a masochist at that point. And now we want these guys at 5. Well, I'm not trying to center on this texture. I'm trying to line them up with each other. Because I'm going to do the lights and then I'm going to reposition these guys. Because like this will end up getting moved over. But I'm not as concerned about these yet. And like the texture is irrelevant at this point. Right now the texture is just like a rough backdrop that's gonna change with the area. there. It's gonna be... All right, there. We're going for the exponential growth and light length here. The real challenge is going to come when we start curving anything. This soundtrack is the Tor soundtrack. Pretty much everything I use is Tor. Tor, sometimes KOTOR for the soundtracks. Alright, so those are in position. We're going to try to line these up at a similar point. The Zed fighting is going to be our enemy for that. That's what I was afraid of happening there. Shit. It goes like slightly off as we go. So I'm going to have to adjust that manually. Don't let anyone ever tell you mapping isn't tedious. Use Bob's flat props for what, Rhino? These are Bob's new flat props. On the side, the walkway. This is still not quite even. It's more even, but it's... Well, at least it's equally uneven, so I can move it out entirely. So that's not a problem. Like we can look at the wireframe, but it's not especially helpful on an angle. Use that for what though, Rhino? For the sides? Like I can't replace the whole road with any single prop that exists. So I'm not sure what specific props you're talking about, and also what specific use you're talking about them for. Well, I'm not really looking for a slack, because like it's important to have the hexagons, and then the lights obviously need to be the Umbara specific ones. So like the slab props don't really do much for us because we don't want to cover the ground. we want the texture as the road, then the only other thing we need is the sides after the lights are set up. We're also going to be doing some curves in the road, so like no matter how much effort I put into trying to make this even, it's gonna go pretty off the rails sooner or later. Which is why I wanted to have it go as straight as possible for as long as possible. But we are going to get into windy territory. Which is also why I didn't just make these one long individual thing. Like one wide individual thing, rather, that you just put in pieces next to each other. Because we have a bit more flexibility here. Like, it'll still look weird going around the corners because it won't... Like, it'll still be very clearly not curved. But there's only so much you can do there. Having to make, like, a whole different set of props for each curve you're going to be doing. Just not... That doesn't sound fun to me. See how off this ends up. All right, so we need to move this like marginally out. Save and hope it doesn't fucking crash. All right, texture. Let's get rid of this. Now let's paint it in here. Again, unfortunately, hard edge does that, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure even if there's going to be a little bit of what we call road seepage, we don't want it to be all over the place. So that's what we end up with. And I think the best way to do this is to go with these guys along the path that we want to do. And that actually lines up pretty well with what we want. So on this side, we really only need one curve. But unfortunately, that still means going a good distance. Alright, I'm gonna have to make sure that we're level. We want 60, we want 100. Oh, we don't want 60, we want 50. I'm lying to you all. Never want the seepage. All right, there we go. So we're running a new bit of road out this way. So we're gonna have this running all the way out to the city. So it curves a little bit, which in 2006 terms means it juts a little bit. I, for one, can't wait for all the complaints of how this doesn't exactly match the roadmap of the Clone Wars episodes. Alright. Here we go. And we're going to build the capital city out into this area. Alright, we're going to have to do some redistricting. There we go. Like, I was a bit concerned about how to start and stop them, but I think the best way to do that is just to not. I think if we just go straight through... and have it just go off the map, then that works best. Like, have it not go off the map, but like have it go to the edges of the map. Well, there is a red glow on the plants in the episodes. Yeah. Yeah. And 5. There we go. And I'm going to fill those gaps. It's like, I'm trying to avoid curves, not just because they'd be hard to do, but because they'd look the worst. So if we have a longer highway, then that's kind of what's going to work best. going to shift a little bit. So I know this is going to cause some people some OCD problems, but that do just be how it is, though. That do just be how it do. Short of doing like purpose-built geometry that you just lay on the... Hey, Justin. How was Squadrons? I saw you had a guest, and I was quite upset. But we were watching some Hallmark movies, so... I can't be too upset. Look, I was absolutely at one point considering doing some assets, like Star Wars assets, ported to City Skylines. Like, I was so close to making that a reality. And I still kind of live every day wondering what might have been. It looked like Sam Witwer was back on the stream with them. So I'm kind of sad that I missed that again. But now that he's officially part of the X crew, it seems like we'll get... Well, the one we just watched tonight, Justin, was a time travel one. So that was new and epic. It was definitely my favorite one. I think it was just posted today, and Dana was like very excited that this was the case. It was like a timeless Christmas or something. Well, the tropes that I like, basically so far it's been either there's a like a bake sale or something to save a music program, or the music program does a concert to save something else. And at least one of those two elements is involved in like 99% of them. What have I done so far? I finished out some of the layout. I made these light props, and then I placed these light props. Sam Witwer is the voice and actor for Starkiller, as well as the voice of Darth Maul and Palpatine in the Clone Wars. He's the voice of Maul in Solo as well, I believe. Spoilers for anyone who didn't realize that Maul was in Solo, but you know, you had a few years, so. But he is a super cool guy who streams. So a couple times now he's been on stream with Ek, and last night I was on one of those streams. And that's like a definite top 5 YouTube moment right there. After streaming with Ek the first time. Like, let's be clear. See how I can make this curve a little bit smoother. But it's kind of impossible to do it without having like a really big curve. How'd the stream perform after announcing Sam was on? It jumped up a fair bit. Then we all started losing and swearing. I don't even know what the first time I streamed with Ek was. Like, was it actually the... It might have even been Tapcaf. Alright, what angle are we doing this at? This is a 42 degree angle. Umbara coming to skirmish. Yeah, this could probably be turned into a skirmish map. Oops. It's not the angle I wanted. At least these ones provide decent guidelines, because they're always going to be touching, so I can just get rid of those other ones. Or at least I can shift them within a little bit better. So like those lights are definitely going away. Is there much map collaboration between you guys and other groups like AOTR? Nope. We have a bunch of mappers now. It used to just be like Rogue and then me and Bob sometimes doing stuff. But we've recruited Rhino, Chell, and Poliwhirl, and Xanathar to do more maps. And like some of our stuff gets put out there, but like we don't grab maps from other sources. And AOTR tends to go for a much more like minimalistic map design. Like I think they cut most maps and tend to do everything slightly differently. So there's different design principles at work. It's like I'm not sure how many custom maps they have, but they've also pulled from like some other publicly available ones. Like I don't know how many they created in their ground overhaul. But with pretty much everything we do it ourselves rather than like pulling from existing stuff. So this should work out a bit better. Like, we try to share like knowledge with other teams. Like if we find something that works or doesn't work, we'll tell them. But since we've started, we've always been trying to do our own work ourselves. And like keep it helps everything be a lot more consistent as well. There. Like I said, curves are not really going to be possible without like a specifically curved prop at that angle. But we got what we got. Let's just do that. Okay, if I do this here, then we can sync it up on the other side. The verticality not being copied is the really annoying part. Yeah, like I wasn't saying any of that to insult AOTR or anything. Like, just different approaches. Like, we don't make our own stuff because everyone else sucks or something. We just do it because we want to make our own stuff. We generally get along pretty well with AOTR. I mean, some of the fan bases for some mods get a little fucking weird, and some mod teams will start encouraging that in ways that are like, come on. But like, I'm usually pretty diligent on the Discord and stuff about like if people start talking about a mod in a way that like we wouldn't appreciate if we saw it being said about us, then I'll usually step in and be like, hey, stop it. But I don't know. So like, even for someone who's generally doing videos on mods, I tend to not try to be especially inflammatory on YouTube, because like I could just fucking clickbait the share of a video, get more views on it, and still be like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. Okay, can I follow this one with it? Then there's fucking Burnstrobe. Would you ever make a Star Trek mod or a Stargate mod? Like, I really like Stargate, but I also really enjoy the Stargate mod that's already out there. And like, I think I'm at a point where I can't see me starting another EAW mod for another universe. I'd like to think at some point in my life I won't be modding Empire at War. As crazy as that sounds. So like, I'm gonna stick to satisfying myself with covering every possible Star Wars era. Alright. Umbara. Let's get our double backups going. Yeah, I figured you'd say something about that, Justin. Thanks. Yep, Umbara units will come eventually. Just... Hey, Justin, guess what? I said come eventually. Yeah. But yeah, they're going to happen eventually, but they have not happened yet, and they won't be in 1.0. Yeah, like, the thing about modding is, like, this is a hobby for all of us. And if you don't like people, like, having the same hobby isn't necessarily a guarantee that you're gonna like people. And if you don't like people, just, like, don't hang out with those people. And a lot of modders end up feeling like, oh, well, we all gotta be in the same place. Like, no, you don't. Yeah, I've helped Farseer with Campaign Commander before. I don't know that I'll have time to in the future, but I also just like don't make any creative decisions on that. I was just, when I was helping with it, I was literally just making models, handing them to him, and be like, here, it's a model. Suggestion, Algonite. I mean, a lot of modders are narcissists. A lot of YouTubers are narcissists. Well, a lot have egos. There are some that are also narcissists. Alright. This is all gotta be... there. So that was slightly off. And I'm including myself in that, by the way. Like, don't get me wrong. Hey, Code. How's it going? Here to admire the fun of curves that can't be curves. Like, there was another modder who recently went on a fucking tirade against me in some public channels. It's like, I don't know where he gets his ideas. Saying shit like, I mod all, like, modding is my job, which it's not. The channel is. And that I'm doing it because I don't have another job. It's like, what? What? What's the logic there? Like, you're doing your job because you don't have another job. I mean, I guess, is that, like, that's technically true, somewhat? It's like, I am doing this job. The reason that I am currently in the process of doing this job is because it is my job instead of something else. But, the reason that I'm doing this job, like, instead of other jobs... instead of getting other jobs, is because I like this job. This is literally all he does. He's a Mon Calamari now. Yeah, Umbara, this map is going to be in the update on the 23rd. There will be... I'm going to do a video with a full changelog. Like, not full changelog, we're not going to do, like, breakdowns of all the stats changed. But, like, a general overview at the least of what's there. I don't know why he sounds like Richard Nixon. Aru. I need to watch Futurama again. Alright, these are off the map, so it's not super important, because it is starting to diverge a little bit. These are slightly over from where they ought to be. I think that starts happening about here. It's supposed to be slightly more to that side, but here we go. Yeah, it's not quite D&D code. It's a different rule set, but it's the same idea. Different dice, but like yeah, you're doing some stuff. There will not be Umbaran units on the map to start with. There will be Umbarans eventually, but we don't have them done. So there we go. There's a road. And that has been... get the fucking plant off the road. I should do this even if it's not streamed. What's that mean? What is... Can you do things without streaming it? I thought this was all there was. I need to get these plants off the road. But yeah, we should do that. Whether it's streamed or not. Alright, I just need the little purple guys. And yeah, so the textures don't look quite right. Like the color's a little bit off, but because these are their own distinct objects now, I can just go in and I can place the correct ones, so it's not as big a deal as it may seem. All right. Barn and field. Is coding for EAW difficult? Not really. Kind of just got to figure out what you can and can't do. Do I dare try to do the lights? Well, first what I want to do... Well, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. I'm not going to do it as complicated as the... as the Clone Wars setup is. But I am going to try to do like a rough outline and see what I can get. This is an area where only being able to use like straight lines is not great. I'd almost have to just like make a texture. Will the CIS be able to build Umbara units if they have control of Umbara? Not in this version. Eventually there will be Umbara units in the mod. I should probably make a sticky for that or something. Like, if I do too much of this, it's going to look really bad. But if I just get enough in that it's there and not going to be, like, super distracting for people, I feel like that's the happy medium for this. Without just drawing out the actual design on its own texture sheet and making that its own prop. All these buildings are in the playable area, so you can get close to them. Oops, that's not what I wanted. 5. I mean, yeah, it's technically true. Like, you can do a decent amount with XML, with story and scripts and stuff, but like to do any sorts of new features and like a lot of the stuff we do in Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic is based on Lewis scripting. So you kind of do need, if you want to do any of that, you do need to have some knowledge there. But when it comes to stuff like unit stats, that's all just XML. I know this is technically not the road, but I'm going to give it the same kind of concrete style. Intersperse with some of that. Yeah, Milkshape was terrible. Wings was terrible. I need some music. We thought of doing a sub-mod where hero deaths aren't permanent. That would significantly change the entire mod. Like, that does more than just making them not die. That changes the structure of almost everything. It wouldn't be a simple sub-mod. So that's definitely not something that we'd plan on doing. I just want this. I can't believe I stuck with wings as long as I did. Like, there were elements of the UI that I thought were easier. And especially UVing that I thought was easier, but like, it was just fucking playing on hard mode. Basically. Let's see if we can do anything with this. Alright, I think we're gonna do some of these guys. I'm mostly going to have this starting off the map. So like we're starting to get into an area of city. Because the Umbaran capital, you really only see it off in the distance in the show. I want to have elements of it kind of starting to show up. I don't really want it to take over the playable area, but if we have parts of it that are like kind of within the city limits. I want to find the props forest. No. Prop story? No. Temperate prop? It's definitely not a temperate prop. It's gotta be prop urban. Yeah. And I'm gonna adjust the position of the buildings as we develop this stuff. So like this base building can go more this direction, and I'm gonna move this back here a little bit. All right. The farther back we go, we don't want to do too much unnecessary stuff. Like, we just want enough that it's not obvious when we're getting off the horizon. So having too many props up here, if they are going over the hill, it kind of makes it obvious that it's going out to nothing. If you can kind of keep some of the height behind it clear, then it's going to be far enough in game that you're not actually going to see a lot of it. Not to mention the extra draw calls that makes, so we don't want that. But this is essentially what a lot of the base area is going to look like. We're going to turn this into some city-ish stuff. Like, modability is definitely something that devs do think about when they're making it. It definitely factored into Empire at War, but I don't... Part of it is just having the stuff be easier for yourself to access as well. Because, like, they were really hoping to do more Empire at War stuff. Like, they wanted to make their own expansions and everything, and like, it just makes it easier when you're developing if stuff is accessible. Like, there's still petroglyph devs posting on Reddit every so often about, like, wanting to do Empire at War 2. There we go. And when we got the Empire at War patches, it was like the Disney, EA, and Petroglyph directly acknowledged that it was because of modder support. I really wish we had the little lights that line these guys. That'd be pretty epic. Let's clear the object list. Let's do you, and let's start spraying a little bit. We need more of these. Scatter radius. These are just going to be like the basic chunks of what we're doing. Alright. Okay, so we are pretty well into the base here. I want to keep... I think if we can finish the base first, that'll be fine. That'll be good even. Not even just fine. Let's move you there. Let's actually put this here. And where's the base shield prop? Or not prop, base shield marker. Yeah, creating a game from scratch would be very difficult. It's a very different skill set from what we do for modding. Like, there's overlap there for sure, and like some of the fundamentals are the same, but like it's very different stuff you're doing in a lot of cases, especially talking about something like Empire at War versus actual game development. I want a wall. Let's angle this way. I'm going to try to set up the city limits like this. I don't want it too recognizable as a pretty generic prop. But I do want some sort of wall. I think this is good. Let's set it. I guess we'll slightly more on the outside then. So let's slide these in. Put this Z angle. And raise it up a bit. There we go. So this side is going to be going out a bit more into the forest, which is fine. We're going to have some more of these structures. And let's see. So the thing with that data reader is that you can't really connect the stream, like making money off streaming, to the actual thing you're making, depending on what you're doing. And it's a very different skill set, and it's also a very different thing. Like I stream making some of this stuff, but you're not necessarily you're basically doubling up the hours you have to put in if the connection between supporting yourself through that kind of thing has to be through content creation like this. Because, like, ultimately, the more I get into doing this, the less I'm able to spend time on actual modding and, like, creating the stuff that I'm theoretically, like, in that example that I would be doing. And if you're trying to do that while also having a different job, then it's just, it's not going to happen. One, 5, 3, 28, 48. Thank you, Dan Clan. Like, having an IP where the developers are endorsing the fact that you, yes, can monetize it is much better. Uh, 45, 47, 57. But then you're still having the Patreon be for that mod, which you can't do. Like, that would be the same as having just charging for the mod directly. It's like, well, there are, I'm sure, a lot of people who just support my Patreon because I'm also working on TR. Like, I didn't start getting any traction with that until after I started having incentives on their own and the channel started growing. Like, the amount of support that happens on the Patreon is far more related to the size of the channel than the growth of the mod. There's like, there are other modders that have Patreons that are like directly tied to the mod, or they'll do a couple streams for it. And if they're not doing it consistently with the streaming part being a full-time job, you're not really making anything off it, and then you're really just getting whatever you're getting out of being a streamer. So it's like, it's a very different way of going about things. And then you especially have issues where if it's like a team venture, which most mods are, or even the ones that aren't, if they use work from other people. Like, there are mods that directly charge for beta access, or used to, and they use other people's work in it. It's like, okay, so where's my cut in that? But thank you very much, Dan. That's very appreciated. Very generous. Thank you. This highway is now the Dan Clan highway. You've adopted a road. Can't seem to get that to the angle I want. There we go. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with how this is coming out so far. Like, there's still a lot of work to do, but I think the highway's looking about right. I think the foresty areas are coming together. I think the base is looking good. I was a little worried coming into it because it has been so long since I've made a map, but I think we're heading in the right direction at least. It is a little limiting, again, working with just Umbara stuff. But we are, I think, making the best of it. I think it's probably best to try to keep too much city stuff out of here. And just have some kind of utility stuff out here. So just to show that we're kind of getting to a city, but it's not quite here. We'll have some of the this go out. So we want to have it looking. Ah, shit. I fucked that up. Oh, that's supposed to be 50. So again, we don't really need a lot of detail off the map. We just need some stuff that if you're looking this direction, you're going to get the idea that there is stuff out here. Because it'll be out that way, and we're looking out that way. We just need to make sure that we're kind of blocking off some of what you're going to see. We'll see. B. Doing some different heights with this will help make a bit of a city skyline. Because again, you're never going to be in this area. You're going to be looking kind of out this way. So it's more the horizon line. Which means we need a couple of these guys just in the way. And enough detail out of these that you're getting some slightly different like that. I wouldn't mind having some more of these, like more different types. Alright. Because, like, again, you're going to be maybe looking in this direction. So we're going to work just in behind here. We're going to add in some more of this. It's dark enough that we don't really need to do much with the texture there. Let's move the fog back on. Because this is the other part of it that we haven't really been looking at. It's not Umbara if there's not some fog going on. So stuff. One of the things we have to do is make sure that even when we're doing darkness, we're faking the darkness. Because it's really important that people be able to see everything that's going on. Like if you play the mod right now, there are a few light maps that are too dark to really see what's going on. Who voices Thrawn in the mod? It's the base game Thrawn voice. I'm not sure who the voice actor is for that. It's like if you try to play a dark map, then usually you don't love it. And the way this is set up, you should be able to stay wonder how Umbara looks in at daytime. You should be able to stay pretty oh shit, did I just delete the run I wanted? No, okay. I want Korriban Tor. This is kind of Umbara E2, but not quite. It's very purpley. lighting makes a huge difference. Most maps have like 5 or 6 different lighting environments, but I think Umbara you kind of want to stick to the main one. I kind of want to try... I think Umbara raining sometimes would be... interesting. Yeah, Thrawn's in Forces of Corruption. Nah, I don't think the rain works. You need the fog. He's not in like Empire at War, but he is in Forces of Corruption. All right, I think that's going to have to do it. I've gone about an hour and a half longer than I intended to. Well, whether it looked better, it looks more like Umbara like this. Like we're specifically trying to match something with this. With characters you brought in from the mods from Legends, have you been getting VAs in, or is that? We basically have open casting calls and then bring people in whenever it's feasible. So there are a few that are... done, some that aren't. But I need to start rendering some videos and go to bed. So, we're going to leave this here for now. I think we're like one stream away from being in a playable state. And maybe I'll even be able to have it into the Republic playthrough. But, let's see. Nature, let's turn off the fog. Yeah, like we need to do a lot of texture work in the middle and maybe some prop work. The outskirts are starting to come together. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have enjoyed the stream. Some of the calmer streams doing the mapping, but have a good night. Hope to see you next time. We've got some KOTOR 2 coming up tomorrow.